The laughter hit Marcus before he even stepped through the ballroom doors, echoing down the marble hallway like a warning he should have listened to. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above him, tuxedos brushed past like black waves, and his phone buzzed again with another mocking message from friends who could not understand why one of the wealthiest men in Boston was arriving with his quiet assistant instead of a glamorous socialite. His chest felt tight, heavy with the familiar loneliness that money had never managed to soften, and as he paused outside the entrance beside Hannah, he wondered whether he had made a mistake inviting someone who lived so far outside his world. If you were in his place, already doubted by everyone around you, would you still walk into that room knowing every eye would judge you before you spoke a word? Marcus had built his fortune from nothing, a kid from rural Ohio who once slept in a rusted pickup truck before creating a software company that turned into billions. His success had filled skyscrapers with his name but left his evenings hollow and painfully silent. Parties felt like theater, friendships felt transactional, and relationships crumbled when they realized he was easier to admire than to truly know. Hannah had been hired as his assistant 2 years earlier, a woman who carried quiet strength beneath a modest smile, someone who noticed when he skipped meals or worked through nights without sleep. She came from a struggling family in Missouri and had spent most of her adult life taking care of others, and perhaps that was why she never treated Marcus like a trophy or a bank account. When he invited her to the charity ball after learning she had never attended anything remotely glamorous, he saw a flicker of surprise and fear in her eyes that mirrored his own. Inside the ballroom, the music swelled and cameras flashed, and the whispers began almost instantly. Marcus recognized Brandon, a hedge fund manager who had once been a close friend, raising an eyebrow and murmuring something that made the surrounding circle laugh. Victor, another billionaire with a polished grin, shook his head as if Marcus had made a public spectacle of himself. Hannah walked beside him wearing a simple navy dress she had nearly refused to buy, clutching a small purse like it was armor against a world that felt too bright and loud. Marcus felt protective yet ashamed at the same time, wondering whether he had dragged her into humiliation for his own loneliness. Have you ever trusted someone enough to step into a place where you knew you did not belong, hoping they would stand beside you no matter what others said? The mockery grew louder as the evening progressed, subtle comments about Marcus losing his edge or becoming sentimental. He caught glimpses of Hannah standing alone near the dessert table, her posture tense, eyes scanning the room like she was searching for an escape. Memories of his own early years flooded back, nights when wealthy investors had looked through him as though he were invisible, when every handshake felt like a test he could never quite pass. He realized that by inviting her, he had unknowingly forced her into the same isolation he once endured. Yet beneath the discomfort, something shifted when he saw her help an elderly donor who had stumbled on the carpet, kneeling gracefully without caring who watched. Her compassion drew attention for a different reason, and the same people who had mocked her began to look twice, curiosity replacing ridicule. Later in the evening, the host announced a surprise presentation honoring volunteers who had quietly supported community shelters and children's hospitals throughout the year. Marcus watched confusion ripple through the crowd as Hannah's name appeared on the giant screen, followed by photos of her organizing food drives, tutoring foster children, and raising funds for families devastated by medical debt. The room fell silent as the announcer described how she had spent years helping people long before she ever met Marcus, never posting about it or seeking recognition. The friends who had laughed earlier shifted uncomfortably, realizing the woman they dismissed carried a depth none of them had bothered to see. Marcus felt tears threaten to break through his composure, a mixture of pride and guilt swirling inside him as he understood how little he had known about the quiet hero who had supported him daily. When Hannah walked onto the stage to accept the recognition, she looked overwhelmed but grounded, thanking the volunteers who inspired her rather than praising herself. Her sincerity filled the ballroom in a way money never could, and Marcus felt the walls he had built around his heart begin to crack. Brandon approached him afterward with an awkward apology, admitting he had judged too quickly, while Victor admitted he had never thought beyond status and appearances. Marcus realized that his loneliness had not come from wealth alone but from the shallow expectations surrounding it. Hannah returned to his side afterward, eyes bright with a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude, and for the first time that evening, he saw admiration replacing mockery in the faces around them. As the night drew to a close, Marcus and Hannah stepped outside into the cool city air, the distant hum of traffic blending with the fading music behind them. He reflected on how easily people measure worth by glamour or connections rather than kindness and resilience. The ball had begun as a painful reminder of his isolation but ended as a quiet lesson about humility, friendship, and the courage to see people beyond appearances. Hannah's presence had not only changed how others saw her but also how Marcus saw himself, reminding him that genuine companionship grows from shared humanity rather than wealth or status. If you found yourself standing beside someone underestimated by the world, would you have the strength to believe in their hidden light before everyone else noticed it? Before the story ends, take a moment to comment and share how you would have reacted if you were Marcus walking into that ballroom or Hannah facing those judging eyes. Marcus began opening his life to real connections after that night, supporting Hannah's community projects and reconnecting with people he had once pushed away. The friends who mocked him learned that humility often arrives through unexpected teachers, and the lonely millionaire discovered that true richness comes from compassion and shared purpose. The memory of that evening stayed with him like a scar and a blessing, reminding him that kindness can transform rooms filled with judgment into spaces of reflection and growth. Years later, he would still remember the moment Hannah walked in and changed everything, not by wearing the most expensive dress but by carrying a heart that refused to be small. And if this story stirred something deep inside you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe only if it truly touched your heart and reminded you of the power of second chances and unseen kindness.